My name is Aisha. As soon as I gave my matriculation exam, I was eagerly waiting for the result. The days seemed endless. I called my friend Rajia and suggested we enroll in an academy to improve our English. She was also bored and immediately agreed. It's a good idea, but the classes are in the evening. Do you think we will be allowed? We both spoke to our parents, and they agreed on one condition. We had to go and return together. We lived close to each other and had always been friends, so this arrangement worked out well. It had been a long time since we met, and now we would see each other every day. Rajia expressed her happiness by saying that she didn't have a sister, and I, being with her, made up for that gap. Rajia's father earned well, and they were a well-off family with a small household, just Rajia, her parents, and a younger brother. Their home was like heaven, and they were highly respected in the neighborhood. We started going to the academy every day at 5 p.m. The academy only taught English, and we also practiced speaking English for half an hour every day. A former student of the teacher's would often visit after classes. The teacher likely gave him a pickup and drop-off service. One day as we were leaving class, the young man appeared. He looked at us intently, which made me uncomfortable, and I quickly lowered my gaze. After a few days, Rajia said, "I think that young man who visits Sir Ahmed is now following us. He doesn't enter the academy, but waits outside. When we leave, he follows us." I had been glancing back, and Rajia warned me, "If you keep doing that, he'll keep following us and never leave us alone." After a few more days, Rajia expressed her concern that if we didn't talk to him and ask why he was following us, one day he might come all the way to our house. I reassured her, "Why would he come to our house? He always turns down the side street halfway through." But Rajia insisted, "You should talk to him. Ask him to stop following us." I ignored her advice and kept walking fast. The next day when we met, Rajia told me that when I had walked ahead, he came to her and said, "I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time, but your friend is always with you, so I couldn't find an opportunity. Today I finally got a chance. If you don't mind, I want to talk to you." She replied, "Yes, you always follow us, and halfway through you turn into the side street. It's quite confusing. I've been wanting to talk to you as well to resolve this issue." He then pointed to a small cafe nearby, which had a family section, and suggested, "Let's talk there. It's better than talking in the street." Rajia replied, "All right, let's talk." They both went to the cafe and she asked, "What did he say?" He explained that he was a poor boy in need and had heard that my father worked in a department that provided scholarships for underprivileged students. "I'm struggling and I was hoping to ask for your help," he said. He said that he was a very sad person, an orphan, and had to leave his education unfinished in his final year of BA due to lack of money. He used to come to the academy earlier, and the teacher used to help him financially, but now they couldn't. He told me that he had heard that your father worked in the education department and could arrange a scholarship for him. This gave him a glimmer of hope, but he lacked the courage to talk directly. That's why he had been following us, hoping that one day you might notice him and give him a chance to finish his graduation. After hearing his words, I felt very sad. Rajia asked, "Could you talk to your father about helping him?" I replied, "Not to my father, but you could talk to my mother. She could tell my father and arrange the scholarship." I sighed deeply and said, "I hope what he said is true, but let me tell you something, Rajia. He doesn't look like someone in need based on his clothes. But don't stop me from doing good deeds." Rajia, upset, replied, "I'm not stopping you. Even if I tried, you wouldn't listen. But be careful, such things can bring trouble." I reminded her that one shouldn't trust people too quickly, especially strangers. But Rajia wasn't affected by my words. She stopped meeting me and started keeping a distance. She tried to separate from me after we left home. Sometimes she'd say, "My feet hurt. I'll walk slowly. You go ahead, or you'll be scolded by the teacher." I knew something was wrong, but I didn't ask her about it because I understood why it was happening. After a few days, I stopped asking questions because I knew Rajia couldn't explain. She had been my friend since childhood, so how could I remain indifferent to her actions? Eventually, I asked her directly, "Rajia, what did you say to Faraz?" She replied, "I've told him that no matter what, I will support him. I will help him financially so he can complete his education." This became her routine. Every day she would stop and talk to Faraz on the way. I started feeling uncomfortable, and I even threatened to end our friendship, but it had no effect on her. She continued her way, and we grew further apart. She would reach the academy 10 to 15 minutes late, and she stopped walking with me. One day, her mother came to our house and asked, "Where is Rajia? Why is she so late today?" I quickly made up an excuse, saying, "Sometimes we get delayed while preparing for tests, so we're late." I didn't want to tell the truth, but I didn't want to lie too much either. I thought if I told the truth, Rajia might stop going to the academy. Gradually, my communication with Rajia ended. Our paths diverged. Since I had some time before college admission started, I decided to focus on improving my English. I told my mother the real story. She suggested informing Rajia's mother, Fozia, but I refused. I told her that if my father found out, he would stop me from going. Besides, she won't stop. She still contacts Faraz on the phone. Her parents will eventually find out. The results came, and I enrolled in college. I stopped talking to Rajia. Her mother sometimes came and asked about her, but I didn't say much. Eventually, Rajia's father saw her with Faraz outside one day. He tried to run away, but Rajia couldn't escape. Her father brought her home and scolded her severely. After that, she stopped leaving the house. The very next day, Rajia's father came to our house and spoke to my father, saying, "My daughter used to go with your daughter. Did she never mention anything to you?" My father replied, "She did mention it, and I advised her not to go, but your daughter didn't listen. Aisha ended the friendship because of her behavior. I was going to inform you soon." Raja's father seemed upset and said, "You should have told me sooner. Now, it's too late." My father tried to console him, saying, "Well, look, Rashid, you'll have to arrange for your daughter's marriage soon. Times have changed now. Children start rebelling when they are restricted. Instead of scolding them, we should ask with love. My advice is to meet the boy. If he is a good, respectable person and comes from a good family, then let your daughter marry him wherever she wants. Forcing her to marry someone else might cause more problems later, or she may remain unhappy." Uncle came in anger, but after my father explained, his anger cooled down. He started thinking that Mr. Rehan was absolutely right. If we allow girls to step out of the house, we should also give them the right to choose their partner. Uncle said to Rajia, "Give me the boy's address so I can check his background and meet his parents. If the family is decent, then we will think about the solution." Rajia never expected that he would say something like this. He was known to be strict, but she was happy and immediately informed Faraz over the phone that her father agreed. "You can bring your parents to meet my father. They want to meet him." A couple of days passed and Faraz kept making excuses and never brought his parents. Rajia got tired of it and stopped calling him, but he started calling her instead, even though Rajia had strictly told him not to. She told him that if he called, she would do so herself when it was the right time, and that he should never do it when her brother or father was around because it would cause problems. Faraz didn't stop calling. Whenever he felt like it, he would dial her number. When Raja's father or brother was around, she wouldn't pick up the phone, but they would, and then the call would be disconnected. They started to get suspicious. One day, Auntie picked up the phone and said, "What kind of behavior is this? If you want to marry, then meet the parents. Otherwise, I'll file a police report." Out of fear, Faraz brought his mother over. Auntie spoke to Faraz's mother and said, "Sister, bring your son and husband here on Sunday, and I will keep the men busy while we talk." But on Sunday, they didn't show up. Rajia's mother got angry and said, "What kind of people are they? Before this becomes a bigger issue, you should check out the boy and report to me if we should invite them over for a meeting." Rajia's uncle went to Faraz's neighborhood to inquire from the neighbors. He found out that Faraz was previously married, but the marriage ended in divorce. His father had passed away, and the household expenses were being taken care of by his uncle, who had already arranged a marriage proposal for him with his own daughter. It was unclear why they hadn't yet gotten the girl married. Faraz ran a school, but no one knew about his other activities. There was no bad talk about him from the neighbors, but it was unclear whether the neighbors were truthful or whether Faraz kept his life a secret. Some time passed in silence. Rajia told her mother that Faraz's father was no longer alive, and he had no elderly relative with him. His uncle wanted to marry him off to his daughter, and Faraz's mother had already visited your house. She would come again for the proposal. Raja requested, please convince my father not to set conditions for bringing other relatives. Faraz has family disputes, and this is why his relatives won't come. Her mother replied, in our culture, girls' marriages are not settled like this. Someone older must be brought for the formalities. Marriage is not a game. Until the proper elders come to speak on his behalf, your father will never accept Faraz alone. It's better for you to stay away from this situation, or your marriage with Faraz won't happen. Rajia became disheartened with her parents' decision and one day took the opportunity to leave home. She was gone from morning until afternoon, and by evening, it was time for her father to return home. Auntie became very worried and rushed to our house asking, where is Rajia? She has been missing since morning. Her father is about to return, and she hasn't come back. She has left, and I am very worried. Your uncle will be here soon, and if he asks, what should I tell him? Where has she gone? I thought maybe she came here to meet you, but she's not here either. Auntie, she hasn't visited me for days, and I haven't seen her. So where could she have gone? The poor thing hurriedly left. I was scared something might have happened to Auntie. The night passed, and there was no clue about Rajia. I was sure she had gone after Faraz. I searched for her, but she was also missing. The house was locked, and the school was closed. A week passed, and then Faraz's mother called. She spoke to my mother and told her that these two irresponsible ones didn't respect the elders and had secretly done a court marriage. Now Rajia wants to come to you to apologize. She called me, but didn't tell me where she is. I was in Lahore for my sister's funeral, and this happened while I was away. Faraz's mother spoke to my mother saying, please let Rajia come back home. At least we can save her from wandering. Faraz, I don't know what will happen to him now. At first, Uncle didn't agree, but then he said, fine, tell her to come. He agreed to let Faraz's mother come to us. 2 days later, there was a knock on the door. Rajia's brother was at home and opened the door. There she stood, all dressed up. When her brother saw her, he spat on the doorstep in disgust and said, don't you dare come inside. Go back to where you came from. There is no place for you in this house now. She replied, Ayo, I will come in. Let's see how you stop me. This is my father's house. No one can stop me from coming here. Her brother pushed her and shut the door. Hearing the noise, Uncle came out and asked, who is it? It's Rajia, her brother replied. I pushed her out and didn't let her in. Uncle opened the door. She was still standing there. She came in and her mother took her into the room. Auntie was crying and scolding at the same time. That night, Uncle's wife said to him, instead of pushing her out, you should send her off with respect. The gossip hasn't spread in the neighborhood yet. She has already done a court marriage. If this information gets out, your reputation will be ruined. She'll live her life at the mercy of Faraz, like an abandoned girl. If you don't take care of her, who knows what will happen to her. A week later, Rajia's simple wedding took place. Only a few people from the neighborhood were invited. Uncle and Auntie didn't invite any relatives. After the wedding, Rajia went to Faraz's house. Her parents didn't visit her after that. Rajia would visit her mother every 2 months. Her brother and father would avoid her, but her mother, out of love, would hug her. However, Uncle hadn't allowed the son-in-law to come to their house yet. One day, Rajia came to her mother's house in a terrible state. She collapsed on the bed, and her mother asked, what happened? Are you okay? Rajia cried and said, Faraz divorced me and kicked me out of the house. He beat me, and I have bruises all over my body. Auntie's heart ached when she saw her daughter's condition. When her father came home and saw Rajia, he said, I knew this would happen. A boy with such a background can't be trusted. Whatever he does, it's no surprise. A man who hurts a woman and leaves her with lifelong scars. Rajia took refuge in her parents' home, and her father thankfully accepted her back. Without his support, Rajia would have been lost. She felt deeply regretful for betraying her parents' trust for Faraz. She felt guilty for making her parents ashamed and dishonored by trusting a stranger. She came to me and apologized for her behavior. Rajia was my childhood friend, and there was no ill feeling in my heart towards her, so I forgave her. Time passed, and 3 years later, I got married and moved to Canada. Rajia's parents arranged her marriage to a respectable man in the family. Today, Rajia is very happy, and by the grace of God, she has a son. She is living a peaceful life with her husband, but whenever she remembers Faraz, her body trembles, thinking about how she made such a big mistake by trusting a stranger and betraying her parents. However, the lesson she learned was bitter. If her parents hadn't been there for her, she might have missed out on this happiness.